Hello, welcome to another episode of Broke But Not Out. I just wanted to get into the fact that, it's Christmas time and Merry Christmas to everybody that listens to this. I hope everybody has a good holiday, and I just wanted to say we've got some good news. So they might be able to do surgery on my wife and hopefully get the tumors out, which will help with eliminating the four-stage brain cancer. And they said with any luck, the chemo and everything else, she may be blood and bone cancer free within the next year or so. So that's some good news. Plus, we have Alex, which I'm very proud of, is going to be joining the Challenge Academy here in Wisconsin in roughly 2 weeks, which is a big deal for him because then that'll help straighten everything out because we've had a lot of issues with him, a lot of problems with behavioral and attitude and stuff like that. So that will help out. But with Christmas time, it is time for family. It is time for friends. Um, and just kind of getting into some stuff. I seen something that has been really eating me up. I haven't talked to really anybody on my dad's side of the family now. Um, I mean, my sister, talked to her. I miss her. Um, I've got to give her a call. Just life's been hectic. But as far as her, anybody from my dad's side of the family, I've not talked to. It really does kind of, it pissed me off, to be honest, seeing pictures of how, my grandparents are at my cousin's house. And, I took them off. I took my dad's side of the family off of my Facebook, everything. Nobody's reached out. Nobody's tried to contact me. Nobody's tried anything. And I have a feeling too with what's going on with my foot because I've got stuff going on with that. And it's like, it really kind of irritates me the fact that I can just be written off so easily by that whole family. Um, it's just irritating. And like I said, it does hurt, but I've got to understand there's people out there that it doesn't really matter. Things are more important than other things. So, I'm used to it. I've always been on the back burner with that whole family, and it sucks, but it is what it is. And there's nothing obviously I can do about it. Uh, so, and sorry, I've got my dog in the background kind of making me lose my train of thought. Because apparently she's got an itch. Scarlet, enough. But no, it does hurt in the fact that, I'm like named after my grandfather. I'm the only one that carries that name anymore because the rest of my family, they, you know, sure, a couple of them had boys, but they were my aunts. So, and my uncles all had girls. So, therefore, the Shannon family name ends with my boys and all that if my brother ever does have a child. So, but it kind of sucks because yeah, I haven't heard from any of them. I take it back. My dad did message me about a month ago asking, how everything was, but that was about it. We live in the same town. It We've been back up from Texas since the beginning of August, and I think we've had maybe about 4 or 5 sentences between the two of us and haven't seen anybody. And I understand that, yeah, it goes both ways. But with everything that's went on, especially with my foot and the fact that, they can choose somebody that's not blood over somebody that is blood, it's kind of, well, it's horseshit, to be honest. It's not like they're going to watch it anyways. They don't really watch anything of, you know, that I do. It's all, my cousins because my cousins are like the best people ever, apparently. So, whatever. I've been used to that my whole life. from that side of the family, they've always went on like vacations and they've went to football games and baseball games and everything else, and never was I invited. So it is what it is. But like I said, it just kind of hurts because not hearing from any of them, they never called or anything on my kids' birthdays. And it sucks. But then when you see on Facebook, it's, oh, they had a birthday, happy birthday. They had a birthday, happy birthday. Or, anniversaries. Oh, happy anniversary to them. It's like, okay, my wife and I have been married and nope, nothing. But it is what it is. But I just wanted to say, getting into the whole Christmas spirit and stuff, Christmas is a holiday for me that I personally don't care for. Christmas drives me nuts because it's like, okay, it's supposed to be about friends and family. Well, when your family consists of basically your wife and your kids, I got my mom and my uncle and, my sister that I talk to occasionally. But other than that, that's about it. Friends, I don't really have too many friends. I don't have anybody that I'd say is a close friend, which really sucks because, yeah, I've pretty much, lost a lot of people over stupid drama. And it was just dumb. And the biggest drama of it was we had a small wedding and we didn't invite people because we had a very small wedding. But it is what it is. I mean, I keep saying it is what it is, and I've got to get over the fact of all that. It hurts. It's something that you sit there and my closest friend, which is my wife, and yes, it's supposed to be that way, but it's just hard when you can't go out, hang out with anybody or anything like that because it's pretty much you, your kids, and your wife. And it gets, kind of hard, but at least the people I've got in my circle I can trust. And I wouldn't give that up for anything. My wife is my number one person in this world. My kids are right there with my wife. And even though they drive me completely insane, I wouldn't trade them for anything. And I mean, they're extremely excited for Christmas. And I know what it's like when you're a kid and you're excited for it, but it's changed throughout the years, especially when, for many years we went to my grandma's. And it's like ever since she passed back in 2017, Christmas just hasn't been the same. I used to enjoy decorating and getting in the spirit. And it's just, to me now, it's just more of a drag and it's gotten way out of hand. Christmas, like I said, is supposed to be about family and friends, but thanks to everything out there, it's about what can I get, what can I buy, how do I make somebody happy? And to be honest, it should be, the fact of just being there should make people happy. And I'm not trying to be cheap about anything, but Christmas should not be about material possessions. Christmas should be about being with the ones you love, who you're with. It's blown way out of proportion. And it's not fair because people nowadays have lost that traditional value of what Christmas was. If you look at Christmas, you know, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, Christmas was about being with loved ones. It wasn't about what that loved one's going to get you. And I just feel like it's lost all meaning of it. And the fact too, Christmas is supposed to be about like the birth of Christ and all this stuff. And there's so many flaws in that story, but I don't really want to get into the whole religious thing. It's just lost so much. To be honest, I look more forward to like Halloween or, well, even like 4th of July and stuff like that more than I do Christmas. And a lot of it too is the fact that my wife and I aren't where we want to be at. We miss being down in Texas. We loved it down there. And we want to get back to that point. But now we have to wait for what's going on with my foot, and we're going to stay up here until my son's out of the Challenge Academy, which is 11-week program. And so we're the earliest that we could do anything would be like middle of June. So we've kind of agreed one of our biggest mistakes was moving back, but we almost had to move back to kind of get things straightened around. And even my youngest son, which was part of the reason why we came back, he's regretting it and wish we could have stayed down there. But at the end of the day, I mean, as long as he's there, the kids are happy. But, you know, at some point in time, my wife and I have to start thinking about what makes us happy. Where do we want to be? And we've spent, 20 some odd years raising our kids, and we still have more time to go. But at some point, we've got to make our lives ours. And I don't want to get too old to where we can't enjoy anything. And I don't want to get to the point where it's like having a bunch of regrets. And with everything that's went on with my wife, the biggest regret is the fact that a lot of the times, she her she didn't really have a bucket list, but her bucket list was, you know, spending time with family. And trying to get the kids to understand that has been like pulling teeth out of like an alligator because they're teenage boys are to that point where they don't want to spend a lot of time with mom and dad, but trying to make them understand what possibilities could go wrong has been hard to make them understand. And it's not the fact that they're too young to understand because our 11-year-old gets it. Our 16, 18, 19, 21-year-old, whatever, they should get it. But they're more worried about video games. And I mean, and that goes for a whole with kids these days. Kids seem to be more worried about themselves and video games and, you know, doing all that stuff when it's kids today have went so far backwards. Electronics, technology, all that has put a damper on so much stuff because there was a point in time in life where, when you wanted to hang out with your friends, you wanted to meet up with your friends, you went outside. You, you called them up on a phone that was attached to a wall. You went outside, you got beat up, you got bruised up, you got cut up, but that was the fun of it. You were kids, you were doing what you were supposed to. You had street smarts. I mean, you either learned fast or you didn't make it. And nowadays, these kids, they've lost all that. The whole, what are they going to tell their kids when their kids are doing the same thing? And they're like, well, we don't know how to really survive outside on our own. But back in our day, we did this. And it just sucks because I've, I try to teach my kids how to work on cars and all this stuff. And they just kind of lose interest. The only one that seems to have any interest in it is Alex a lot of times. But then Alex's biggest problem is his mouth. He doesn't know when to stop, and he gets himself into trouble, and nothing is ever his fault. So you can't really explain anything or talk to him because it's his way or no way. And like my uncle, who is 68 years old, we go out, we work on stuff, and I listen to him. And then when we try to say something to Alex is like, well, I know how to do this. I know how to do this. Like, dude, it's like, I know how to do stuff you don't. My uncle knows how to do stuff I don't. At some point in time, my uncle's not going to be around. I want to make sure that I have as much knowledge on stuff, that he does. And I'd like to be able to pass that down. But when you have somebody that sits there and says, well, they know it and they know this and they know that and my way's better, and it's like, dude, there's going to be a point in time where you don't have him and you don't have me. And we tried to explain that to all the kids. There's going to be a point in time in their life where they don't have, you know, either one of us, where they've got to rely on each other at times. And trying to get them to understand that is difficult because I don't know what they think. I don't know if they think that we're always going to be there, but we're not. And the way they fight and everything, half the time they're like, oh, I don't want to talk to this person. This person drives me nuts. It's like, you know what? But at some point in time, that could be the only person you've got left. Like, that could be the person that is willing to come help you do something that you need to get done. That could be the person that you need to sit there and talk and cry on their shoulder and be able to express yourself with. Or, if you're having a bad day and you need to go do something, that might be the person that's only available, and trying to get them to understand that family is what should matter more than always fighting, always thinking they're right and they're wrong, and always sitting there on a video game. It's like the only time they ever communicate or do anything with anybody, it's over a video game. Video games should not take over being out and being in society and actually enjoying life. Because I mean, I've got stories when I was a kid about, going out playing Ghost in the Graveyard, playing tag, and being outside until the street lights come on. And then if there was a later curfew, all the neighborhood kids, we were all getting together and we were all playing these games and enjoying life. That's what it's supposed to be about. That's what childhood memories are. Not, "Ooh, I got the highest score on Roblox or something." That it shouldn't be like that. And trying to get them to understand that. And I do realize it is a different generation. My generation was obviously different than my parents. But in a lot of ways, the things that my parents did were things that I did. And my wife did. I mean, when my parents were younger, they'd sit there and they'd cruise the strip here in Janesville. Well, when I got that age, I was out there cruising what they call the circuit, which took over for the strip in Janesville. We had fun. And not to mention, some of the cars that were out there were cool. It was like a rolling car show. Now, when you go out there, it's just basically a bunch of, you know, kids that haven't worked a day in their lives and they have mom and dad's pickup out there, and everything's just changed. The world's just went downhill so much. And with all this going on, I mean, my wife's battling depression. I'm battling depression. There's days where it's like you just don't even want to get out of bed or do anything because you're sitting there and you're just fighting with life and fighting with everything and trying to get through everything. It just gets old. And with the struggles that my wife and I go through, I mean, I made the joke. It's like, okay, when you get married, for richer or poor, for better or worse, for health and sickness, it's like, okay, we've went through sickness, we've went through worse, we've went through poor. So now we should have health, uh, you know, good times and wealth. But, I guess the fact that if everything goes right and she can get through the, you know, the brain cancer and stuff like that, that is wealth. Just the fact of having her there and being, so we can annoy each other till we're old people, that is what wealth is. So with any luck, hopefully, I mean, we're going to be able to annoy each other for the rest of our lives, which kind of kills my plan when, told her if anything ever happened to her my 80th birthday, it was going to be hookers and blow, making the joke. But that is really the only thing I want is just for her to be healthy and her to be able to live a long, full life and maybe make the kids understand that being around longer and being with family are what's supposed to be important. And like we tell them too, because they get so pissed off over little things. And it's like, if you get this mad over the little things, the big things are what's going to really kill you. And trying to get that through their heads I might as well just be talking to a wall because they just aren't grasping everything on that. And trying to explain to them too, it's like, you can't always be angry with people because you never know at the end of the day. Her and I could be going to the store and something happens. We could get hurt in a car accident or, not even come home at all, and trying to explain that to them and showing them like, okay, with the race car driver Greg Biffle, do you think his whole family thought that, when they were taking off to go to Florida and then the Bahamas, that literally they had like 10 minutes left? No. So you never know. And Greg Biffle was a hell of a race car driver, and he will be missed, and a hell of a humanitarian, and his whole family. And that was a tragedy all in itself. But trying to explain to the kids that you never know. You know, one of us could have a heart attack or an aneurysm or something in our sleep and not wake up. You never want to leave a loved one go without, you know, telling them what you think, like telling them that you love them, that you're going to miss them. And you never want to have the last things you say be angry or pissed off because you won't ever get that back. You'll have to live with that for the rest of your life on how you felt. And some people, yeah, they can live with that. Some people are like, whatever, guy was an asshole. But some people that'll sit there and eat them up inside for as long as they live, and that'll be their worst regret. So that's all I'd like the boys to know, that even if you're mad at somebody, don't let that person walk away with that final thought. And, you know, they need to make those good memories and stuff like I had when I was a kid for Christmas. And like I said, that's probably the reason why Christmas just kind of has lost a lot of meaning for me. I mean, not only do I remember spending Christmas with my grandma on my mom's side, I mean, we used to do Christmas things on my dad's side too. That when I was younger, everybody'd be at my grandma's house, so we'd go there. But things have changed. Everything's changed. And it just sucks. I know my wife with her family and that, she's missing her family and wishing that things could be different. And I wish things could be different on my side. But you just got to come to the realization things just won't change. Things are never going to change. And it's just too bad because love my grandparents. But if things are what they are, I'd rather just wash my hands with everything, be completely done with it, and just not even deal with it. Like I said, I've taken that whole family off of Facebook. I've tried to just figure to hell with it. It just, it is what it is. It hurts, but it's just, I need to move on. And it's part of the reason why I do this podcast. It's not only for, getting like the word out on some stuff, it's also a mental help for me. It's letting me get out what irritates me, what angers me, what drives me insane. And I know this one's more of a rambling and everything, but at the end of the day, it should be family that matters for Christmas. Family and friends, the ones you love. And it should be a time of remembering the ones that you've had and the ones that you used to be able to spend time with and used to see them every day, and you took them, I'm not saying you took them for granted, but You never know when the last time you say goodbye to that person's going to be. If I would have known the last time I said goodbye to my grandma, it would have been different. I would have, it wouldn't have been, bye, grandma, love you. It would have been giving her a big hug and telling her how much I love her and how much she meant to me. Same with, my uncles and stuff like that. And I give one of my uncles a lot of credit, but he passed away back in 1996. And that's part of the reason why Thanksgiving still bothers me because he was the one person there for Thanksgiving. You walk in the door and he'd look at you and go, "Who's that stranger?" And every single time I seen him, that's what he'd say to me. And, at the time, I was always like, whatever, I miss that. I'd love to hear that one more time. And I know I've had other uncles too that, passed away when I was really young. And hearing stories of how, you know, I was basically like part of his whole world. And what sucks is I don't remember it. But, you know, he was always there for me. He was always good to me when I was little. And he got super excited every time he seen me when I was little. And I know I give my one uncle that passed away in 96 a lot more credit, but it's because I remember it. But I do have to give my other uncle a lot of credit too, because even though I don't remember it, if, if I had the chance to meet him again, I would jump at that opportunity. It would be nice if you could sit there and be with the ones that you've missed. I mean, hopefully, if religion's correct and there is a heaven and there is a hell, I'm just hoping that, I get to meet them people again. I mean, I'd love to meet my grandpa on my mom's side, which passed away on Christmas Eve in 1980, which was 2 years before I was born. Because, like, my mom even says he would have loved me. He would have loved hanging out with me and, teaching me stuff. But unfortunately, it wasn't meant to be for me to meet him. And I'm named after him. My middle name is after him, which I do got to say, my oldest son did give me some news that was kind of surprising. He said if he has a boy, he's going to keep the tradition going because I'm David Shannon the first. He's David Shannon the second. And he wants to keep the tradition going and have a David Shannon the third. Now watch, he just has girls or something. So, but it is what it is. He's already, that's what he'd like to do if he has a boy. But I suppose I've rambled enough. And I just want to say, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody out there. And I hope everybody has a great new year. And I'm hoping that 2026, it has got to be better than the last like 5 years because it's like, come on. So, with that being said, Merry Christmas to everybody. Please be safe out there. Please be safe on New Year's. And I look forward to doing this again.